I always think that you should start with the problem that you're trying to solve in the world and not start with deciding that you want to build a company, right? I mean, the best companies that get built are things that are trying to drive some kind of social change, even if it's just local in one place, more than starting out because you want to make a bunch of money or have a lot of people working for you or build some company in some way. So, I always think that this is kind of a perverse thing about Silicon Valley in a way, which is that, people decide often that they want to start a company before they even decide what they want to do. And that just feels really backwards to me. And, for anyone who's had the experience of actually building a company, you know that you go through some really hard things along the way. And I think part of what gets you through that is believing in what you're doing and knowing that what you're doing is really delivering a lot of value for people. And that's, I think, how the best companies end up getting made.
To me, entrepreneurship is about creating change, not just creating companies. And the most effective entrepreneurs who I've met care deeply about some mission and some change that they're trying to create, and often they don't even start because they're trying to create a company, right? And that's how I think about my connection to all of us here is when I was getting started, I cared deeply about giving everyone a voice, right? And giving people the tools to share everything that they cared about and bringing a community together. And it started small in one university, and I didn't think it was going to be a company at the time. As a matter of fact, I was pretty convinced that at some point someone would build something like this for the world, but I thought that would be some other company that already had thousands of engineers and was used to building stuff for hundreds of millions of people around the world. And what ended up happening was that no one built it, right? So we just kind of kept on going, right? I mean, people said at each step along the way, what you're doing, all right, maybe college students like it, but no one else is going to like it. And, there's not going to be any money in doing this. So, all right, so you only really do it if you care, right? If you're passionate about doing it. And then it started growing, and people said it would be a fad and it would never be a good business. But, you keep going because you care, not because you're trying to create a business. Then there's the shift to mobile, where people thought that it wouldn't be a sustainable business, and through each of these things, the entrepreneurs who I think build things that last for a long time keep going because they care fundamentally about the change that they're trying to create in the world, and they're not in it just to build a company. And I carry that with me today. Today we live in a world with more than 7 billion people. But more than 4 billion of us are not on the internet. And, we talk about having an equal opportunity to be able to create a change in the world. And I think that's a really hard thing to do if you don't have access to some of the basic infrastructure and technical tools that are necessary to build this kind of these kind of technical products. So, I kind of think about what we're doing today very similarly to how I thought about where we were at the beginning. I get people all the time who come to me and say, all right, well, you're investing billions of dollars in trying to put internet connectivity in places where, we don't get paid for it. It's not something that we'll make any money from for a very long period of time if it works out. But, it's this deep belief that you're trying to make a change, you're trying to connect people in the world. And I really do believe that if you do something good and if you help people out, then eventually some portion of that good will come back to you. And you may not know up front what it's going to be, but that's just been the guiding principle for me in the work that we've done. And I hope that some of the work that we do can play a role in empowering you and so many more entrepreneurs to build the next great companies.
I actually think a lot of the reason why great stuff gets built is because it's kind of irrational at the time, but so it kind of selects for the people who care the most about it doing it.
Do you think there's anything about you, like a personal quality of yours besides sort of basic smartness and determination, that made you well suited to work on this project? I realize this requires some introspection.
Yeah, I actually think determination is probably the biggest piece. It's so many things go wrong when you're starting a company, and often I think people ask, what mistakes should you avoid making? And My answer to that question is don't even bother trying to avoid mistakes because you're going to make tons of mistakes, right? And the important thing is actually learning quickly from whatever mistakes you make and not giving up. Right, and there are things every single year of Facebook's existence that could have killed us or made it so that it just seemed like moving forward and making a lot of progress just seemed intractable. But you just kind of bounce back and you learn, and nothing is impossible. You just have to kind of keep running through the walls.
You are the one who has led this company to be the world dominant player in this right now. There are a million ways you could have screwed up. So what do you think the 3 keys to your success are?
Well, I think a lot of it goes back to those values, right? The values often come from the founder, the person running the company. So I think I believe those things probably the most strongly of people at the company.
Move fast.
Move fast, be bold, right? Focus on impact. I think long-term focus is a really important part of this, right? We've had a lot of opportunities to optimize for the shorter term, whether it's in selling the company or in doing different products that would have benefited us in the short term, but not optimized for the long-term impact. And I just think, opportunities like this don't come around that often. So when you get one, I feel like you almost have a duty to see it through and build it to be what it can be.
The 2 most important things that I look for are, number 1 is just raw intelligence, right? Because you can hire someone who's a software engineer and has been doing it for 10 years, and if they're doing it for 10 years, then that's probably what they're doing for their life, And that's cool, but there's some things that person can do, and they're definitely useful within an organization and can do a lot of stuff. But if you find someone whose raw intelligence exceeds theirs, but has 10 years less of experience, then they can probably adapt and learn way quicker, and within a very short amount of time, be able to do a lot of things that person may never be able to do. And so I think that's the most important thing that I look for. And the second is just alignment with what we're trying to do. So people can be really smart or have skills that are directly applicable, but if they don't really believe in it, then they're not going to really work hard, and they're not going to, even if they're the smart guy who doesn't have the relevant experience, they're not going to care enough to develop the relevant experience in order to succeed. So I think that the best people who I've hired so far have been people who didn't really have that much engineering experience. I hired a couple of electrical engineers out of Stanford to do programming stuff, and they had very little programming experience going in, but just really smart, really willing to go at it. And the guy who just wrote photos was one of those guys. And if you're willing to just go and do whatever it takes to get photos out, then you're probably more valuable than someone who's just a career software engineer. So those are the things that I'm looking for and why I would rather recruit people out of college.